5 genuinely useful features Apple released this week that you probably missed out on because of all the AI hype. We got 2 very welcome AirPod updates. You can now nod your head yes and shake your head no to interact with them. This is way quicker and easier than raising your hand to tap them, especially if you have your hands full, and way better than using your voice with Siri if you're in a public place and you don't want to look like a lunatic talking into nothing. Next up, we have iPhone mirroring on macOS. You're gonna be able to fully control your iPhone from your Mac. You'll be able to use your Mac keyboard, your Mac mouse. If your phone's across the room or something and you're just need to do something quick, you can just do that easily on your Mac without having to go grab it. Another really cool thing that came with this as well is you can now get iOS notifications on your Mac. So if you have a super specific iOS app that's not on Mac as well, you'll now be able to see that notification natively on your Mac. 3, we got satellite messaging. This is huge. Last year, Apple released satellite connectivity, so when you're in an emergency and don't have service, you could send out a rescue signal. And now they're expanding that service so you could just send regular messages. It's not just an emergency beacon. I don't know if it's going to be for emergencies only or you could just use it whatever, but you'll basically be able to text without any service or data at all. This is kind of cool. Then we have 2 big messaging changes. One of them are really big. First little one is you can now schedule messages to be sent at a later date. This is a little thing, but I think very useful. And the really big one that they barely even covered is Apple now supports RCS. RCS is basically like iMessage for Android. It's a global messaging protocol, but it basically lets you see read receipts, send high quality images, and send things like voice notes. And you'll now be able to communicate with Android phones and do and see all of those things. Bubbles are still going to be green though. And lastly, 2 small home changes. 1, Apple HomeKit now has robot vacuum support. This will be a huge gateway for a lot of people in Apple HomeKit, I think. 2, Apple HomeKey now has ultra wideband support. This means to get in your smart lock, you no longer have to tap your phone right up to the lock. You just have to be within 6 feet of it. This is a really cool feature and they didn't really even say anything about it. Anyway, that's 5 things I'm excited about that you might have missed. Catch you in the next video. So if Apple's not collecting your personal data and using it to train the AI, how can the AI improve and get any better? This is an incredible question that I had as well, and I have an answer. So what's really important to understand about Apple's specific AI is that it's only intended to do on-device and personalized things. Doing relatively simple things that leverages personal data on device, whether that's editing text, generating images, all that sorts of stuff. Apple's used a bunch of historical external data to train their AIs up enough to be able to do all that stuff to a certain point. Now, all these sorts of things like editing text, generating images, all those things are pretty static that don't require constant training. What does require constant training is the more contextual things. When you're asking a really complex question, like here's a bunch of variables about a bunch of current events, write me a really specific story that involves those things. And Apple does not want to be that kind of AI. That's why you're seeing them so aggressively leaning into ChatGPT and even name dropping their competitors like Google Gemini for being able to implement those other external AIs. Now, while Apple's AI will definitely be trained over time with other external data sources that aren't yours, just so it's up to date for like basic searches and text editing best practices and things like that, for the more complex, heavy-hitting AI uses, it doesn't really intend on trying to solve that problem. It's going to be using those external AIs. So in short, it doesn't need to be training off your personal data to remain competitive for the things that it's intended to do. But with the way that they implemented it with other AIs, you still get access to that level of data if you need it without having to expose your data for the training. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. I think they implemented this very elegantly. If you have any other Apple Intelligence questions, please let me know because I've been digging really deep into this stuff and I just find it so cool. Thanks for watching.